largely to address this event is largely to address the concerns, the issues, a practical oriented session that we've arranged this time. Of course, in the need of the hour, physical sessions are one of the most awaited one. But we wanted more and more people who can also sit in their offices, try and understand how can this e-invoicing, how can they really do something practically with the Tally. I think most of us use Tally. So we therefore have come out with this virtual session, so that instead of only 100, 200, 300, I think we could reach out to more people and probably they could get some more guidance. The highlights of today's session, I think, so let me also welcome the Secretary of WRC of ICICI, Shweta Jain, with us. Faculty, C. Kunal Soni from Ahmedabad. Sanjay Shukla, again, who will be assisting Kunal in terms wherever practically he has to display something. Komal and Bhavna, both coordinators for the event. Before we can start, may I request everyone to please put your hands on your heart for the ICI motto song. Mishraji, please put up the ICI motto song. Good evening once again. Thank you for the ICI motto song. Friends who would be who are looking at it and maybe they are amazed with the new graphics that we've got for ICI motto. Let me tell all of you that this ICI motto song, this video was launched in one of the most prestigious events of the World Congress of Accountants, of which was hosted at here in Mumbai, and WRC was present as a proud host on behalf of ICI on this Amrit Kal Mahotsav of India at the World Congress of Accountants. So, of the many new things that we did, this was one of those exciting things. As all of you would know, WRC is, keen on doing so many new things every now and then. And I'm sure all of you must be abreast about it. But I would request now Shweta Madam, Secretary WRC, under their leadership, WRC is doing amazing work. A lot of programs and a lot of concepts that they have come out with, a lot of benefits to members that they've come out with. I think I would request Shweta to please address all of the gathering before we could start the formal program. And this would also help us to get people who are still joining in. We can see a lot of people in the waiting room. Probably they will also join in and we'll start with the program. Shweta, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Arpit. And first, let me congratulate to you for designing this wonderful program. We got more than 1,000 registrations. It's really a very good response from the members. So let me thank to Kunal Soni first for accepting our invitation and be with us today. And friends, it's really a pleasure to be with you all today virtually on this program on e-invoicing with Tally. Coming to WRC activities, this year, a lot of new initiative we tried, and we all 20 council members are really trying very hard to achieve our goals, which we set for ourselves when we took charge in the month of Feb. So this year, major focus was on technology and ethics. So technology, because we all know that how important role technology is playing in our day-to-day world. and our profession is also no exception to it. So sooner or later, we have to upgrade ourselves with the technology in our work also. So keeping this in mind, we have started one technology drive series this year, 5 days in a month. So in this series, we have completed Excel and Tableau Fusion, how we can use this technique in while doing our work or sampling work or something kind of. So data analytics courses we have completed, then artificial intelligence, blockchain, robotics, automation process. So these kind of program in terms of technology upgradation, upgrade the technology we have completed, and a lot of programs are lined up also. Then second, more of refresher courses we have planned, because we all know that if we increase efficiency in our work, so in-depth knowledge is required. And for that, a lot of refresher courses we have planned, not only just a 1 or 2 hour session, but on internal audit, then auditing standards, forensic, something kind of, so that members can upgrade themselves with the latest knowledge. Apart from these things, being a woman myself, of course, I was also, I've also faced so many things. If I took a break in my career and if I want to come back again, so mujhe kya problems face ho rahi thi. So I can imagine that if any woman who has taken a break from their career, and if she wanted to come back again into the mainstream, so of course, some little bit updates is required. We want to brush up our knowledge also, confidence also, because आप 5 और 6 साल अगर नहीं हो प्रोफेशन में, तो एक थोड़ा कॉन्फिडेंस में भी हमको लगता है कि कैसे फेस करना है सबको, how we will present ourselves, will our position in front of the other colleagues and clients also. So keeping this in mind, we have started one series, Second Inning Chartered Accountant. In this, we have 5 days in a month again. In this, we have trained to those women chartered accountant who has taken the break from basic Excel to the advanced Excel, basic Tally to advanced Tally, then MS Office, PowerPoint presentations, communication skill, personality development. Also, we have arranged for those women campus drive also. So this was the highlight in this 9 months. What we are trying, and of course, so many programs are also lined up. So you can go through our website. You will find all the details about our program. So of course, your participation and your support is always required. जैसे अभी तक मिलता आ रहा है, उसके लिए really thank you so much, and for in future also looking forward for the same support. So with this, I will conclude here my words. Thank you so much, and
Amazing. Amazing, Shweta. And one of the highlights, again, one of the recently concluded events was senior citizens. I think we've done a wonderful medical checkup. 60+ years of all senior citizens, all chartered accountants were felicitated recently. I'm sure we missed many of you. Should you all be, the entire idea is we all should stay connected. So please stay hooked on to our WRC websites. Please see the emails that WRC sends. And if you have any information, any clarification, any other suggestions that you have, please feel free to reach out to us. So I think that is it. Coming to today's session, let me tell you 3 important things that why we have designed this session today. One is, of course, e-invoicing. Mr. Kelkar has already mentioned one question and I would be happy. All of you can please post your questions. Sanjay here, my friend, would all be doing that. He'll be putting in all the questions, replies to all those questions. So what we tried to do is, simultaneously, while Kunal will be talking and explaining you about e-invoicing on Tally, Sanjay, if there are any questions, would be trying to solve these questions through use of technology. So Tally, and we've one of the largest used platforms, so therefore we've kept e-invoicing using Tally on this. Other thing is, audit trail is a function that has been notified by the government, and very soon it could become compulsory. So I would request Kunal if you could also cover one of the features of Tally where we could see Tally audit trail, how we could use that, how we could set up that during this session. That would be helpful. And third and most importantly, one of the major concerns that WRC has received is from people who have been using QuickBook. Now, QuickBook users have been facing a lot of problem because of lack of support now that has been withdrawn. But what we've done is we've requested Tally also, and Tally has come out with a tool. Now, this tool is available free of cost for all of our members. This tool will help you to migrate your data from QuickBooks to Tally, and that would be done free of cost. Now, all that can be done. You can approach anyone. You can tell them you're a chartered accountant or WRC, and any Tally support, whoever that you are in touch with, would provide this to you. If you are still facing any issues, please reach out to us at any one of us, be it Shweta, be it Arpit Kabra, myself, or any one of us. We'll help you connect to the right people, and they will help you from QuickBooks to Tally. You can do that very well, very effectively, and seamlessly. So these three were the more important reasons why we thought let's have this program here. Shweta, if you don't mind, could you please quickly introduce Kunal for us in a very short space, because now I think we've got a lot of people already inside, and we can kick off the session very smoothly. Friends, you can whatever questions, wherever you have any doubt, please feel free to use your keyboards, type those keys. Let us hear what you want, what is it that you are concerned of. There will be one of us, me, Shweta, Sanjay, Bhavna, Komal, who will be there, who will be addressing those issues, while Kunal is also taking lecture. And of course, please make notes. Since it's more practical oriented, you might miss something. Of course, the recorded version you will find it, but please keep making notes. Please keep making your own observations. That would be helpful for you. Shweta, over to you.
Yeah, thank you. It's really a pleasure to introduce such an eminent personality. Kunal Soni, he's a practicing chartered accountant and associate at Mistry and Shah LLP Chartered Accountant. And currently he's working for ERP implementation, and his main domain of work includes giving advisory on system implementation through Tally based on company's requirement. He has 2 years of corporate experience and has been designated as Group CFO for one of the leading textile manufacturing company, and has managed entirely finance and ERP implementation in the group. Really great. And he has set up entire E&D to end-to-end process and system implementation through Tally for industries like paper, textile, IT industries, etc. Importantly, he had taken more than 100 corporate training sessions on ERP implementation and has even successfully implemented ERP in various industries. Apart from this, he has been into corporate advisory services for financial restructuring, corporate restructuring, import-export advisory on various incentive schemes of government and various government subsidies. And also he is Six Sigma White Belt certified person. So thank you so much once again, Kunal, for accepting the invitation. And I think over to you. You can go ahead.
All right, Kunal, please set up so that we can start the session on this e-invoicing Tally.
Thank you, Shweta ma'am, for the introduction. And thank you, WIRC and Tally, for conducting this event. Now, coming to our session. So, see why today this session, basically the agenda is that now technology is the key for any business implementation. The size of business are increasing like anything. So in that particular scenario, it is not possible to practically manually set up entire processes and all those things. So it is mandatory that we do have a proper system which is integrated in the ERP itself. Now Tally has come up with many of the updates through which you could manage entire business through the system itself. Our basic topics today would be, first would be the e-invoicing, that how you can set up the e-invoicing in Tally. Second is what are the additional features that Tally has given for the purpose of GSTN validation and HSN validation. Third is basically the edit log feature that Tally has provided, which is in compliance with the Companies Act. And apart from that, we would look at how you could do audit from the Tally itself. So Tally basically has even provided with the feature for auditing through Tally, how you could use the same, how all of the reports would be available directly through the system. So now starting with the session. Hope the presentation is visible. So our first session is basically e-invoicing through TallyPrime. Now, see, as we all know, e-invoicing, what has been the roadmap for the invoicing and what exactly e-invoicing is. So in July 2017, GST was implemented. Previously, it was a VAT regime. Then from October 1, it was applicable for entities having turnover exceeding 500 CR. From Jan 21 to entities having turnover above 100 CR. Then April 21, 50 CR. April 22, 20 CR. And October 22, it is entities having turnover above 10 CR. And now from 1st Jan 2023, it is yet recommended that entities with having turnover exceeding 5 CR, to all those entities, e-invoice would be applicable. So it is yet recommended. However, final notification is yet to come. Now, what are the documents to be reported under the e-invoicing system? So see, this is the first basic thing which needs to be taken care of. That, let's say for any entity, all of the B2B transactions are supposed to be reported. All of the export invoices are supposed to be reported. Even in case, let's say if anyone is providing the supplies which are taxable under the reverse charge mechanism, then in that particular case also, for RCM transactions also, you are supposed to provide any invoice. And for all of the debit and credit notes which are relevant to the outward supplies, we are supposed to prepare the invoice. So for many of these entities, it has been noticed that they just used to prepare the invoices just for the sales invoices. They used to prepare the invoice. And however, whenever any debit notes or credit note with relevance to the same were issued, e-invoice was not prepared. So ideally, it is mandatory for any of the outward supplies which are B2B or B2G. And currently, it is not applicable for B2C transactions. So for any of the B2C transaction, e-invoice is not applicable. However, there is a concept of dynamic QR code, which is mandatory for entities having turnover exceeding 500 CR. So in that particular case, they are not supposed to provide e-invoice. However, they are supposed to print the dynamic QR code in their invoices. So this is the basically documents on which we are supposed to provide for the invoice. Now, what has changed compared to the normal invoice system? Now, see, normal invoicing is applicable to all of the taxpayers. However, for e-invoice system, they have provided with a specific limits that for entities exceeding this level of turnover in the last preceding 4 years. Now, see, that also is to be considered, that the turnover is not just of the previous year. It is the turnover right from 2017 to till date. Let's say if in any of the previous year turnover has exceeded the prescribed limit, then in that particular case, e-invoice would be applicable. And the turnover is PAN based. So even if under the individual GSTN, the turnover are not crossing the limit, however, PAN based it is crossing, then the same would be applicable to you. Then see, previously the reporting was JSON based. Now there has been a prescribed schema for the purpose of e-invoice through which we can generate e-invoice. Now there is a unique IRN, which is invoice reference number, which needs to be printed on the invoice. Then only it would be a valid invoice. And in that particular case only, the recipient would be able to avail the ITC of the goods received. And QR code is supposed to be mentioned on the invoice. So these are the basic changes that has taken place. And one of the things that, see, previously there was a facility to amend the invoice in the GSTN portal. Now, in case once e-invoice has been generated, you can cancel within 24 hours. Post 24 hours, you won't be able to cancel the e-invoice. In that case, if there is any mistake which you have identified post 24 hours, then you can directly give the impact of the same at the time of filing GSTR1. So currently it needs to be taken care of that e-invoice is to be generated ideally on a real-time basis. And in case there are any modifications, then the effect of the modification need to be given off well within 24 hours. And post 24 hours, if there are any alterations for which you need to provide an impact of, then you can give the same at the time of filing GSTR1. Now, what is an IRP? That is the Invoice Registration Portal. So it's basically a website for the purpose of uploading of e-invoice. Now we would look at how you could integrate Tally along with the e-invoice system. So see, first thing that you would be supposed to do it, see, whenever e-invoice is applicable to you, you would be supposed to log into the einvoice1.gst.gov.in portal. Once you have logged in the same, you need to create an API user. That there is an option that would be provided there, that is create API user. Once you click on the same, OTP would be generated on the registered mobile number. And then this particular API registration screen will be enabled. So here you can select that through GSP. Tally is a registered GSP, that is GST Suvidha provider. So Tally is already now provided with the integration facilities for the same. So you can select your GSP as Tally Solutions Private Limited. You can create your username and password here. Now, based on this particular username and password that you would have created, you would be able to log in through Tally directly to the invoice portal. It is integrated. And once you provide with the credentials on your Tally software, in that particular case, your invoice would automatically be reflected in the invoice portal. So there is an integration between the e-invoice portal and the Tally software. Now see, these are the basic invoice details. Now, what has changed compared to normal invoice, that the QR code would be printed here, then that there would be a unique IRN number here, acknowledgement number, acknowledgement date. So these are the basic details which are supposed to be provided in the invoice. Then only it would be considered as a valid invoice, and post that only the recipient of the same would be able to avail the ITC for the same. Now, technology for e-invoice. See, why it is mandatory. It is not practically possible to manually implement the system, that let's say if an entity is having 1,000 or 2,000 invoices on yearly basis, then also it is not practically possible to fill the Excels and upload the same on the portal. So through this particular integration, you would be directly able to upload the details of your invoices in the e-invoice portal. So how it works basically. So you are a supplier. So let's say you made any data entry for the sales invoice in your Tally software. Now Tally is a registered GSP. What it would do is it would provide those details to the IRP portal. Then it would check that whether it is duplicated or not. Once it finds proper, it would provide with the QR code and IRN number in the Tally system itself, which would be printed along with the invoice. And now post that, what happens, the IRP portal that is there, that remits this particular data of invoice directly to the GST portal. So by default, your GSTR1 gets prepared. So invoice information gets stored in the GST registry, and the same details are reflected in the GSTR2B of the recipient. And based on the same, buyer would be able to avail the ITC for the same. So this is the basic process for the same, that how the backend is working entirely. So there are some FAQs that, is there any specified position where QR code is to be mentioned? Then there is no such specific field. And see, this many of them are not aware of what are the maximum number of line items which can be reported in an invoice. So currently government has provided that maximum 1,000 items can be provided in the invoice. If there are above that, then you need to create separate invoices for the same. So whether invoice is applicable for invoice between two different GST, and so in case there are any branch transfer scenarios, then in that particular case also e-invoice is applicable. So, and further apart from that, will the IRP portal, which transmits the data to the GST portal, will it store all the details? So it doesn't store all the details, it just passes through the details to the GST portal. Impact of e-invoice on the purchase cycle. So as already discussed that, see, if we do have a valid invoice having the IRN number, then only we would be able to avail the ITC for the same. Now, why technology is the key? So it provides with an effortless generation of e-invoice. In case we want to generate the bulk invoices, then also that is possible. Quick generation of e-invoice along with the e-way bill. So even for the purpose of e-way bill, you are not supposed to manually log into e-way bill portal, update the details, and generate e-way bill and print the same. What Tally would do is, when it is transmitting the data for the purpose of e-invoices, along with the same, e-way bill will also be generated, and it would be directly printed. So you are even not supposed to manually download the same from the portal. Entire e-way bill would be printed along with the invoice. This is basically happens due to the integration capabilities that Tally has. So there's a question that what will happen if Tally has generated IRN but it is not reflected on GST portal. So ideally, see, that is not possible. The IRN that has been generated, it is generated from the e-invoice portal itself, which is transmitted to Tally. So in no scenario it is possible that Tally would generate by itself the IRN number. It is the IRN which is provided by the e-invoice portal itself. So technology, it's easy to manage this data through technology, and there are system generated validations. So let's say, just for example, if you have not mentioned any of the details which is mandatory for the purpose of generation of e-invoice, then Tally would provide you with a pop-up that you first need to mention this particular detail, then only invoice would be generated. So that's the reason why technology is the key. Now product walkthrough we would be going through. So this is the basic process flow that we would prepare invoice. Tally would transmit the same to IRP portal. IRP portal would provide you with the QR code and IRN number details. First thing that we are supposed to do in Tally, that is, for any configuration, let's say be it with GST or TDS, everyone might be aware of that. We can do the same through the F11 feature in Tally. So we need to go in F11 feature. There we need to select GST, and there we should mention our GST and number. And here are the basic details which we are supposed to mention, that e-way bill is e-way bill applicable, effective date of applicability, the threshold limits for the same, and similarly is e-invoicing applicable. Now see, there is one option at the bottom here, that is send e-way bill details along with e-invoice. So if that has been enabled to yes, then in that particular case, both e-way bill and e-invoice would be generated at the same time, and even the e-way bill would be printed on your invoice. So this is the basic configuration that we are supposed to do in Tally. So first is you would see that how we can upload a single invoice, how we can generate the invoice of the same. So this is the basic, the sales voucher in Tally that we are entering. We are mentioning all of the details. Now see, there is an option here that provide e-invoice detail. So here we need to mandatory mention the bill to place and ship to place. Once the same has been provided, and it would be auto populated. In case there is any change, we can update the same. Now see, this is the when you generate your invoice, first time is it would ask you with the credentials post saving the invoice, that do you want to generate e-invoice. When you set the same to yes, it would ask you with the username and password that we created on the e-invoice portal. Once you enter the same, now this credentials would be valid for a time period of 6 hours. So till 6 hours, you are not supposed to every time enter the username password. It would remember the same. And once you have set to yes, it would generate the invoice. The same would be automatically reflected on your invoice. You can preview the same. So the QR code would be generated, and along with the same IRN would be generated here. So this was how you could generate a single invoice along with the invoice. Now the scenario of bulk upload. So let's say there is a scenario that you prepare 4 to 5 invoices, and for all of those 5 invoices, you want to generate e-invoice at a single click. Then even that option is possible. So first thing is you need to go to e-invoice option in Tally. Here it would show you with the list of the options that are available. Now see, there is a tab here under the tab of exchange. So when you go to that particular tab, it would provide you with a list that how many invoices are pending for the purpose of generation of e-invoice. You can just select all of the invoices which you want to transmit to the e-invoice portal. So let's say we are selecting these 2 invoices and we are providing an option for send. So it is showing that for IRN generation 2, do you want to continue? Once you press the same to yes, it would ask you with the credentials. And once these credentials are entered, for both of the invoice, e-invoice would be generated. So see, now it is reflecting that e-invoice generated, number of counts 2. And when you would look at the e-invoice report, then e-invoice report would provide you with the IRN details for the same. This is the third invoice that we have shared for the purpose of uploading. So e-invoice generated, again, it is showing 2. Now the screen is blank. Now see, when you go to this particular tab, IRN generated, it is showing that for 4 invoices, IRN has been generated. And when you see at a detailed view for the same, see the acknowledgement number, IRN number, everything would be updated by itself. So even in case you want to have a bulk upload for the same, bulk upload is also possible through system. There's a question that IRN can be manually updated in Tally. So there is even an option that in case you are using any other software for the purpose of invoice generation, then in that particular case, you can update the same manually in Tally. And apart from that, Tally even has provided with the facility that you could fetch the details directly from the e-invoice portal. So let's say you made the sales data entry in any other software, suppose that you got all those details in your Tally for the sales invoices. Then in a single click, you could fetch all the invoice details from the portal and it would be updated by itself. So manual updation is possible. However, through system, it would be directly fetched from the portal. Now, a scenario whereby e-invoice along with e-way bill. So how we can generate e-invoice along with e-way bill? So see, first thing to remember here is that that in F11 features, that option needs to be enabled, that send both e-way bill and e-invoice details. If that is enabled, then in that particular case, we can generate both e-way bill and e-invoice in a single click. So these are the basic e-way bill details that we are supposed to fill up first under the tab of provide GST, e-way bill, e-invoice details. And now see, these are the mandatory fields. So if any of the field has been left out to be updated, then in that particular case, Tally would show you with the reason that first you need to update with this particular field, then only you would be able to generate e-invoice or e-way bill. So these are the mode of transport, distance, vehicle number, everything you need to fill up here first. These are the basic e-invoice details, which are mandatory. Once you have filled up the same, see here now it is asking, do you want to generate e-way bill and e-invoice both? If you click the same, e-invoice and e-way bill generated successfully. And now see, even the e-way bill number would be updated in Tally by itself. You can check here. See, along with the e-invoice details, even the e-way bill number has been generated. So you are not supposed to log into portal. And in the current release, Tally has even provided with an option whereby e-way bill would be printed along with the invoice. So you are not supposed to manually download the same also. So this is one of the really good feature and which is really time saving for many of the accountants. now there's a question. We have generated e-invoice on 2nd December 22. Original date of invoice was 3rd October 22. So Tally has given the IRN acknowledgement number, but this was not reflected in the GSTN portal. So see, basically how it works. See, first thing is you are supposed to generate e-invoice on a real-time basis. However, currently GSTN has provided facility that in case if there are any invoices in the backdated for which e-invoice has not been generated, then you can even generate the same now also for the backdated invoices. So that facility has been provided. Now, at present, you would have already filed your return for the month of October. So your GSTR one has already been filed. So the IRN number won't be updated further in that particular GST return, which has already been filed. However, you could just as a part of compliance, you can generate the same and keep the same. So this was something on how e-waybill and e-invoice both could be generated at a single click. So the thing that we discussed that can we update the same manually? So we can even update the same manually, and in case if it has been generated from any other software, then that details also we can fetch from Tally directly. We are not supposed to manually enter the same. So this we would look into get an IRN flow. So that option is also available. So say you generated your e-invoice from any other software and you have punched your sales invoice in Tally, post that. So now see, there are options here. The IRN updated manually. Now, when you are clicking on this particular invoice, and there was an option that get IRN flow. So here there is an option for get IRN flow. Once you click on the same, the e-invoice details would be automatically updated in your invoice. So now see, e-invoice details received successfully updated in the transactions. So see, it is reflecting IRN generated from e-invoice system. And now when you would look at the detailed view for the same, the IRN number, acknowledgement number, everything would be updated by itself. And when you take a printout of the same, even the same would be reflected, the IRN number and the QR code. So even if you are maintaining from any other software, then also it is possible to update the same in Tally directly without updating it manually. So there is now one more thing, that identify e-invoice which were modified. So see, many times a scenario may happen due to any of the accountant mistake that let's say any invoice was prepared and post that if we manually made any modification in the rate or quantity or anything or any particular field, then in that particular case, Tally would provide you with the report for the same, that these all invoices were modified post generation of e-invoice. So in case any modification has taken place, then that also would be reflected by the system. And there is one more thing, that is regarding the IRN cancellation due to duplication or data entry mistake or any other thing. So let's say, see, currently there is an option that is provided that you can cancel the e-invoice well within 24 hours. So for that cancellation also, you need to upload your invoice to the e-invoice portal. Now that also you are not supposed to do manually. You can just directly mark the same for cancellation in Tally, and the details for cancellation would be transmitted directly by Tally to the portal. So that also is automized. So we would look at the cancellation process, how it works, cancellation of invoice. So let's say for any particular invoice for which IRN has already been generated, we want to cancel the same now within 24 hours. So what we are supposed to do, we are supposed to select here select that particular invoice, there was an option here, cancel IRN, alter R. Once we click on the same, we need to update the reason for the cancellation. That why we want to cancel that particular invoice. So once we update the reason for the same, we can transmit that data to the e-invoice portal. So now see, first we have marked the same as cancellation. So first we mark the same under cancellation under this particular tab. Once it has been marked to cancel, we can select the same and update the reason for the same. So now see, this was the IRN that was generated. Now we want to cancel the same. So here it is showing IRN generated from e-invoice system. And there is an option to update the cancellation. Now see, I'm entering that, let's say it is a data entry mistake. So we want to cancel the same. Remarks invalid data or anything we can mention. What was the actual reason? So once we have mentioned the reason for the same, it would show you here. Now see, this is pending for cancellation now. So we have marked the reason for the same. Now it is pending for the cancellation. So again, when we go to exchange, here it would show that this particular IRN is to be transmitted to portal for the purpose of cancellation. So we can select that invoice and we can send the data. Then in that particular case, e-invoice, that IRN details would be cancelled from the system. So you can mention the user ID and the password here. So see, e-invoice cancel for the same. Now see, this is possible only in case we want to cancel the same well within 24 hours. Post 24 hours, if we want to cancel anything that is not possible, we can just directly at the time of filing GSTR1, we can cancel that particular invoice manually. So this was basically regarding cancellation. There's a question that whether service receiver is required to generate e-invoice for RCM transactions. So no, see, basically service receiver is not supposed to generate for RCM. It is basically for the outward supplies only. Even the RCM transactions, the person who is providing the outward supplies, they are supposed to report the same under the invoice portal, not the recipient of the same. Now see, in case if in any scenario, let's say if you have mentioned everything correctly, still you are not able to generate the e-invoice, then in that particular case, it might be possible that some services might be down. So in that case, it is recommended to first check the status of the same at status.tallysolutions.com, that whether everything is working correctly, or if there is anything under maintenance, then you can try the same after some time. So even in case if there are such scenarios that everything is mentioned, still you are not able to generate the same, then you can once check the status for the same here at status.tallysolutions.com. Export through post e-invoice applicable. Yes, see, e-invoice is applicable ideally for any of the outward supply. Be it be export through, I would say, you are making through port or post or through airlines. For everything, it is applicable. Now, penalty for non-generation of e-invoice. So ideally, currently it is 100% of the tax due, or 10,000, which is higher, whichever is higher. Or in case of incorrect invoicing, there is a general penalty of 25,000. So these are the general penalties that can be levied in case invoices are not generated the way it should have been. So things are required to be taken care of. And if you have configured everything properly in Tally, system would by default take care of the same. And Tally even provides you with an entire report that for how many transactions e-invoice has been generated, for which it is pending, for how many transactions it has been cancelled. So which is a really good report. I would try to show you with the same. So when you go to display statutory reports, GST reports, see there is here an e-invoice report and e-way bill report. Now it is mandatory to have a reconciliation between your invoice as per books, GSTR1, e-invoice portal and e-way bill. Because at the time of GST audit, they might ask you with the clarifications that why any of the invoices were cancelled, what was the reason for the same. They do have the data readily available with the same. So in that particular case, if you do have a proper system for the same, you can have these details right from the system itself. So now see, there is just a report that invalid information required for e-way bill not provided. These are for e-way bill generation. These are e-way bill generated without part B. These are the ones which are generated with part B. So all these details would be available from the system directly. Same is applicable for e-invoice also. Then now see here there are vouchers where there has been some mismatch. So see now post generation, if anything has been modified, it would show you in this manner that details have been modified, and these are the IRN that have been generated. So all these reports are readily available for this from the system itself. Being an auditor or internal auditor or the in-house company CA, you can just check these reports and you would have an entire idea that whether everything is complied or not. There are questions. In case we need to do any modification in the invoice, so we need to first compulsory cancel the same. Modification in the same IRN is not possible within 24 hours. See, once any invoice has been generated, you cannot modify the same invoice. You can cancel that particular invoice and you can generate the new invoice. Modification in the existing invoice is not possible. And even if you are doing the same, portal would not accept the same. So see, this was basically regarding the e-invoice. Hope it is clear to everyone. In case there are any questions with regards to the same, you can just do ask. There's one question: how can we rectify previous year mistake in bill and GST amount in current financial year? Didn't get it clearly, but see, if in case there was any mistakenly you issued a wrong invoice. So once audit has been done, I would say that you cannot alter any of the details. If in case there was a scenario that for the month of March itself, let's say we are standing in April, you generated a wrong invoice, then in that particular case, you can issue the credit note for the wrong invoice and you can generate the new. If you can just provide some more clarity on the question, it would be useful. Do we need to have put e-invoice credentials every time? So no, it is required to be put up once only, and it would be valid for 6 hours once you have entered the credentials. Time limit to raise e-invoice. See, particularly it is nowhere mentioned in the act. Basically, however, it is recommended that you should raise e-invoice on a real-time basis when you are generating the invoice. Currently, portal even allows the generation of backdated e-invoice generation for backdated invoices. However, it is recommended to generate on real-time basis. So see, this was basically regarding the e-invoice. Now, what updates Tally has provided? Now see, Tally has provided with two very good updates. That is the GSTN validation and the HSN validation. So what it would do is for all of your debtors and creditors, you could validate their GST numbers on a single click. So how it is useful? So let's say any of your suppliers GST number is cancelled. So in that particular case, you won't be eligible to avail the ITC for the same. So you can just have a confirmation for the same that whether your supplier is regular in your filings, all those details would be updated by the system itself. So now we would look into the same how. So it is basically really useful from the perspective of availing the ITC. So let's say we are going selecting any particular ledger. So this is the basic master creation screen of Tally. Now see, there is an option here that is get GSTN information. And the GSTN number mentioned by us is this. What it would do, when we click on the same and provide with the e-invoice credentials that we had created, it would show you with the records that these are the records as per book, and these are the records as per the portal. The trade name, legal address, what is the e-way bill block status. Now see, this is really useful. If the same is blocked, in that particular case, that particular supplier would have defaulted in anything and you won't be eligible for the ITC. So it is mandatory to have a cross confirmation as to the same, and Tally provides you with a system generated report for the same. This we check for individual transaction. However, if you want to check for all the debtors and creditors on a single click, even that option is available from the system directly. So this is basically the checks that Tally has provided for the purpose of GSTN validation. Now, similarly, it has provided with an option for the HSN validation. That let's say if you want to verify any of the HSN for the stock item.
Kunal sir, there's one important question and I want you to take it.
Yes.
So there's a question.
From Mr. Jatin Makirama. Okay, just a minute. My client gives me bills for November month in December first week for accounting. So after accounting is done, I can raise bulk invoice in December for all the bills of November. So see, you would be able to generate the same in the month of December. So let's say there are 20 invoices for the month of November, which is provided in the month of December. Then in that particular case, for all of those 20 invoices, you would be able to generate the e-invoice in a single click. However, it is recommended that see, there is a time lag of date. The e-invoice for the month of November, you are generating in the month of December. So ideally, it is recommended that you should generate the same in the month of November itself when the supply took place. However, currently portal is also providing that facility to generate the backdated invoice, and through Tally, you would be able to generate the bulk invoice for the same. So yes, this is very well possible through the Tally. So now see, when we are looking at the HSN details for any of the stock items. So say here we are mentioning the HSN details in the stock item. So I mentioned, let's say this particular HSN detail. Now you can click here and check with get HSN details from the portal. So what it would do is it would fetch the details that what is the relevant description for this particular HSN, or whether this particular HSN entered is valid or not. So in case you would have written any number, it would show you that this is an invalid HSN. And if it is valid at HSN, it would show you with the description for the same. So now see, this was the HSN and this is the durum wheat, and it is showing successful as one. And if you want to see a detailed view, then even the detailed view for the same would be provided once you press the same to end. And one thing to note that GST HSN validation is available only if e-invoice is applicable to you and you have registered Tally as a GSP. So in that particular case, only you would be able to use this feature. Okay, so there's a question that on the basis of place of service concept, can we generate CGST and SGST bill on other state GST number? That is, we have provided service in Karnataka and the service receiver registered in Delhi, because this system is not allowing to generate CGST and SGST and showing that it is IGST. Practical problem we are facing when we are trying to generate bill on World Bank, since they are taken GST registration in Delhi. So see, to the extent I understood your question, that is, let's say for any of the service you are providing, if the place of supply that is there, that is the place of supply is rather than the place of service receiver, it is the place of service provider. So even in case you are supplying service outside state, you are supposed to charge CGST and SGST for the same. Then in that particular case, there is an option provided in Tally where you can mention the place of supply in any of the invoice. So let's say I would just show you with any of the invoice format so that there is clarity in the same. So say there is this particular invoice. Now, see, whenever you are selecting the party, it would ask you with the details here that what is the place of supply. So in that particular case, when you mention the place of supply here as your particular state, then it would provide you with an option to validate those GST details and even generate the invoice for the same. So to cater this requirement, you need to make sure that you provide the place of supply details correctly here. And once it is done, you would be able to validate the same and generate the invoice for the same also. Whether GTA has to issue e-invoice if turnover above 10 CR, yes. If he has a registration and previous year turnover was exceeding 10 CR, then in that particular case, yes. Show HSN validation process once again. I would try to show the same if time permits. First, let us cover each of the aspects. So these were basically the questions, and just I think the HSN validation that you told. Now see, when you are going to master screen in Tally, this is for the bulk HSN validation for which Tally has provided an option. What you can do is you can go to report. See, the purpose of go to is from any particular screen. If you want to open any of the report, you can just directly press this, enter the details in go to report and open the same. So here, let's say we are mentioning GST rate setup report. So once we enter the same, these are all of our stock items which are there. And these are the HSN numbers that were provided by us. Now, if you want to have bulk HSN validation, we can just select this option here, get HSN information. Once we select the same, press the same to yes, provide with the credentials. It would validate with all of the HSN details. So now see, it is mentioning all this, that these are the 3 successful and this one is rejected, reason it is an invalid HSN code. So in case you want to validate the same for all of the items, you can validate on a single query. Even that is possible. If invoicing is not applicable, can the assessee register on invoice portal and issue invoice case-to-case basis? No, at present it is not possible. I understand that for B2C there is no option for generating invoice, but in case buyer is registered dealer and consignee is a non-registered dealer, then e-invoice cannot be generated. How to resolve this issue? So see, in that particular case, you are not at all supposed to generate e-invoice. So let's say you are issuing invoice to both B2B and B2C. So only for B2B supplies, you are supposed to generate the e-invoice. For all your B2C supplies, you are just supposed to provide with the normal invoice. So for that particular cases, e-invoice is not required to be generated. And even Tally or portal won't allow you to upload that data. Can we generate e-way bill for sales return goods? So yes, and see, you are supposed to generate e-way bill for any of your outward supplies. So even for the credit notes also, you can generate the e-way bill for the same. Hope all of the questions have been answered. So if there are any further, you can just post the same. So this was basically regarding the e-invoice and the e-way bill portal, e-way bill generation through Tally, and the HSN and SSC code verification through Tally. For debit notes where goods purchased are written. See, for debit note of purchase written, you are not supposed to generate invoice. That is your inward supply, which has been rejected. So in that particular case, for any of the debit notes for the purchase of for the purchase written, your particular vendor is supposed to generate the e-invoice and e-way bill. For that, you are not supposed to generate. In case there are debit notes for the purpose of sales, then in that particular case, you are supposed to generate the e-invoice for the same. Okay, so this was regarding e-invoice and everything. Now we would go further to the TallyPrime Edit Log feature that has been provided by Tally. So if you could, so see, there is an icon here, TallyPrime Edit Log. So there are two Tally releases for TallyPrime now. One is the normal TallyPrime and other one is TallyPrime Edit Log. What is the difference between the same? Entire functionality is one and the same for both of the same. Only thing is Edit Log provides you with an entire trail as to the transactions was created by whom, what were the details with which it was created, what modifications have been made in the same, if it is deleted, who has deleted the same. So all those details, if you want to trace the same, you can just select this particular TallyPrime Edit Log and open the same. There is no additional cost for TallyPrime or TallyPrime Edit Log migration. You just need to have a valid TSS renewal. That is one thing. And apart from that, in case you want to migrate the data, you just need to open the TallyPrime data in the TallyPrime Edit Log. Then in that particular case, system would ask you by itself for the purpose of migration. So there is no complex, I would say thing for the purpose of migration or anything. That would be done by itself. So there are furthermore question. An assessee is dealing exclusively in B2C transactions as turnover above the threshold limit for e-invoice. Whether any registration is compulsory done on the GST portal. So see, in that particular case, see, portal provides by itself. In case you are eligible for the purpose of e-invoicing, portals provides by itself that you are eligible and you are supposed to create credentials in that particular portal. So you are not supposed to manually check anything like that. E-invoice portal would show you by itself the same. And in that particular case, when you are issuing invoices only for the B2C transaction, then their invoice is not applicable. However, if you have a turnover exceeding 500 CR, then dynamic QR code is applicable. Is turnover considered only for B2B or B2C? See, aggregate turnover includes everything. So total turnover to be considered. Whether Forex dealer is required to invoice if turnover exceeds, and B2C and B2B supplies are, see, for total turnover applicability, it is yes, you are supposed to have the registration. However, for the purpose of exempt supplies, you are not supposed to generate the same. But for registration, yes, because total turnover is considered in that. Some local business firms don't maintain stock in Tally. Purchase entry is done as accounting invoice. Is maintenance of stock a mandatory requirement for raising invoice? So see, it is not at all required. See, for the purpose of e-invoice, even it is applicable to the service industry. So ideally, it is not mandatory. However, you do need to make sure that you do have a proper invoice format, because see, when you would be mentioning the HSN code of services and inventory that are different. So when you are selecting, I would say, goods, and you are mentioning the HSN code of services, then in that particular case, there would be conflict in the same. So recommended to maintain along with the inventory. If not maintaining, still you would be able to generate if you mention the HSN code for the services. So do we need to have a declaration starting that invoice is not applicable in case of turnover less than 10 CR or B2C cases more than 10 CR? And how Tally is configured to such declaration is, if applicable. Invoice is not applicable in case of turnover. See, what is the role of Tally basically? If invoice is applicable to you, how you could register the same on the invoice portal, how you could provide Tally as a registered GSP, and how you could generate invoice for the same. Now, any declaration of that sort, there is no role of Tally in the same, or even for the purpose of applicability, I would say that. If it is applicable, you can register the same on the portal, select Tally as a registered GSP, start generating invoice from the system, and all your compliance would be done. But prior to that, if you want to do check the same, that is something which is apart from this, and it's a consultation. can invoice be generated in foreign currency? As the option is there, but it always shows amount in INR where we generate in. So see, e-invoice is applicable. TallyPro has the capability of managing the books of accounts in multi-currency. So in that particular case, let's say whenever you are exporting anything, then in that case, you can maintain the same both in the USD and INR, and you need to map the same ones, the currency for the same. And if you have mapped the same, you would be able to generate the same through the system itself for all of your export invoices. In e-invoice, the same invoice number can be generated. What is the solution if we have generated? It is not at all possible. Once invoice has been generated for any particular invoice number, you won't be able to generate the invoice again for that particular invoice number. IRP system already has that control check and it would provide you with the error. So now we would start with the TallyPrime Edit Log. Now see, you might be aware that from 1st of April 22, this was applicable. However, the compliance has been deferred currently, and currently it is mentioned that it would be applicable from 1st April 2023. Now Tally has already come up with a solution for the same. It is mandatory for all the companies that to maintain a proper edit log trail. So how Tally has came up with the update for the same, what are the options available, how you could trace the same, and even in case if currently it is not applicable, how you could use it as a part of your internal controls, that we would look into. So now see, first thing that let's say we are doing any of the data entry. So I'm going to voucher on say 22nd December 22. Just need to update the period. I'm selecting any of the ledger. Let's say I'm passing this entry of 5,000. Now this is the bank payment entry being done. Now see, this is the entry that has been passed from my end. Now let's say I'm modifying the same to 1,000 rupees. I'm even mentioning any narration. Now, if I want to check the same, that what was the original data, who has altered the same, when that particular person has altered the same, and in which particular fields he has altered the same, I can just go here to the related reports tab. There is an option edit log and alter queue is the option. So now see, when I click on the same, it would provide me with all the logs of the same, that who created, who altered. Let's say there are alteration n number of times, or let's say user has altered the same 20 times, then in that particular case, 20 logs would be created. So this is the original entry that I created. So it is created, username admin, date and time 22nd December, and time is 6:11. And these are the details which have been entered. Now, when I modified the same, so who altered? So I only modified the same currently, and what is the date and time, and what I altered. So previously narration was not mentioned. I have mentioned the same. So all the alterations are marked to red. And I've even altered the amount for the same, that is 1,000 rupees. So see, through this, you could trace that in case any of the alteration has been made, who has made it, when he has made it, and in which particular field he has made it. So it is, I would say it's a really useful feature that is there, and which is very useful for the purpose of internal control. Even if from compliance perspective it is not applicable, still it is recommended to use the same. So in a similar manner, even in case if you have any alteration in the master, then that also you could trace through the system. So let's say I'm selecting any of the ledger. I'm mentioning any of the additional details here, or I'm mentioning PAN number. Now see, when I went to GST, and if I'm not mentioned the same, it is showing with a pop-up that GST is not mentioned. So that is a control check which is it has provided. So here also when I go to related report and edit log. So see, it was the previous record. Then there was I opened the same, but there were no changes in the same. And currently I have altered the same. So what all things I have altered? So this is the income tax number, country, GST registration type, residence. This is the address that was updated. So any of the alteration in the master or transactions would be highlighted. And it is recommended to use this particular feature. Can we get the alteration log for all of the vouchers at same time? So yes, you can have the same. I would show you with the same. So when you go to Debo, so now see there is an option here that show report for. So do you want to see for all vouchers, altered vouchers, or non-altered vouchers? So through these, if you want to have a reporting for only the altered voucher, you can even trace the same. So this is basically the TallyPrime Edit Log feature, which is one of the very good feature, and it is recommended to be useful from audit perspective, even from the internal control perspective. It is really useful. So in case there are any further questions with regards to the same, you can ask the same. Okay, so nothing further regarding this. So now we can move further to the audit features that Tally has provided. That there are various reports that Tally has provided for the purpose of audit. You can even do the entire audit through the system itself. So what are all the analytical features that Tally has provided? We would have a look into the same. So now see, first thing, there are two options provided. When you go to display, statement of accounts, there an option is provided that is for Tally audit. Now see, this is basically useful when as a part of internal control, if someone wants to check that what all transactions were entered on daily basis and he just want to verify the same. So in that particular phase, in that particular case, this feature would be useful. So now to enable this particular feature, it is mandatory that whenever at the time of creation of company, you have enabled this option to yes. You have mentioned the user credentials and you have set this option enable Tally audit feature to yes. If you have set the same to yes, then only this particular option would be available in display more reports, statement of accounts, Tally audit. How we can use the same now? There are three segregation: voucher types, masters, and users. So when you click on the same, so these all users have entered this number of transactions between this particular period. And this transaction once entered was altered. And when you drill down the same, then it would show you that they entered in which particular voucher types. And you can even drill down till the data entry in this. So if you want to view the same user wise, how many masters, if any, were created, that would be available. Voucher type wise, these all were the voucher types, and this many number of entries have been done in that voucher types. Now, just to show you with one example, let's say we are selecting this job work charges. So see, currently there are 2 transactions that have been entered. Now, let's say I'm checking the same. Post checking the same step, these transactions are okay. Then what I can do is I can just select these transactions. I can select here accept selected or accept all. So these transactions are gone. So now see, the job work transactions, all transactions have been verified. So now it is, now that particular tab itself has went from here. Similarly, let's say in case of this yarn purchase fabric. So let's see if I'm verifying this particular transaction, except one, as it was proper. So one has been verified. Now only one transaction has been left. Now, whenever I would be doing any of the new entry in that job work voucher type, or I'm altering any of the entry, then Tally would show me with the report that this new transaction has been entered. So you are supposed to verify, or in this particular transaction, which was already verified from your end, there has been some alteration. So you need to recheck the same. So if someone wants to use the same as a part of daily checking of the data entry, then they can use this particular feature. So see, 2 transactions were entered in this job work. Now let's say I am just updating this amount to 5,000. And I'm even entering any new transaction. Let's say. Now at present, there are 3 transactions. In one transaction, I did alteration. Now see, now it is showing that entered is 1, altered is 1. So one transaction I altered and one transaction I entered additional. So I'm going this to enter the entered transaction. So this is the new transaction that I entered. So it is showing that this is for the purpose of verification. I can select and the concerned admin can select and accept the same. This is the transaction which I altered. So in this particular entry, I altered the same. So it has again came for the purpose of verification. And it is even reflecting that it was entered by this particular user, altered by admin on 22nd of December. So this I can select and verify the same. So if in case of any company, if they want to do a routine checking of all the transactions that have been entered, then they can do the same through this particular feature. Hope the same is clear to everyone. Now coming from the, let's say, stat audit perspective or the internal audit perspective, if you want to do the auditing through Tally itself, how you could do the same. So in the display more reports, there are 2 reports. One is the analysis and verification and other is the exception reports. So we would go through each of the same. Let us first go to the exception report. So first thing is, let's say we are selecting this negative ledgers. Let's click on the same. So these all are the list of the ledgers which has negative balances. So for example, debtors has credit balance and creditors has debit balance. Or let's say any of the bank account has credit balance. So for any of the negative balance of any of the ledger, this report would be generated by Tally itself. This you can just export the same and provide the same to the management that what is the reason for the same. In case of debtors, whether it is actual and advance received from the debtors, or there is some other reason, or there is some invoice which is pending to be booked. So all those things you can just system directly, I would say, analyze the same. It would provide with the report of the same. You can just provide the same directly to the management and ask for the justification for the same. And in case you want to have this report for any specific group, you can select the group for the same year. So if you want to view this report only for the purpose of debtors, then you can select the group of debtors here. So this is just the report for the debtors. So you can ask that why all these debtors are having credit balance. What's the reason for the same? Similarly, negative stock. In case inventory has gone negative, what's the reason for the same? Ideally, it should not happen. So this also, you can check all these list of stock items directly. So these reports are available readily from the system. Similarly, there's a report for overdue receivable and overdue payable. What's the reason? Now see, for this particular report, it is mandatory that the user would have made data entry on bill-to-bill basis. If it is made properly through bill-to-bill accounting, then only this report would be fetched properly. And even in case, now see, there is even a requirement from the Companies Act perspective that we need to give the aging analysis in the Schedule 3 reporting. So in that particular case, aging analysis again is directly available from the system itself. If you want to see that what is the outstanding report and everything. However, we need to make sure that user has made the data entry by providing proper references for the bills. So if it is made properly bill to bill wise, then entire aging analysis would be available through the system directly. You are not supposed to do even the aging analysis manually. So overdue receivable and overdue payable, even that would be available from the system. Now, apart from that, analysis and verification feature in Tally. So there are two options. One is the voucher and verification, and other is the data analysis. Now see, here it is showing that what are the total number of vouchers, how many of them are sampled, how many of them are verified, how many are under internal observation, and which are pending for clarification and which has already been clarified. Similarly, external clarification. Now, internal clarification is something, let's say any CA is conducting audit of any entity, any of the staff member is doing audit. Then if there is something which needs to be asked internally in the office, he can mark the same for internal observation. If there is something which needs to be asked or clarified from the company staff, he can mark the same for external clarification. So entire report would be available directly from here. There is a question that, so what is the step if at the time of formation of company in Tally, I was not yes audit feature and now I want to yes it. So you can very well do it from now itself. However, in that particular case, the reporting would be available from the date you are enabling the same. So you would be able to use the same whenever you want to, but the reports that would be generated, that would be effective from the date you are enabling the same. So now see, these are the verification of voucher, total number of vouchers sampled, verified, internal observation, external clarification. And this would even be very useful from the perspective of audit documentation, that what all queries were raised, what all things were answered. So even in case someone is having the peer review, any of the CA, then in that particular case, this even could act as an evidence as a part of documentation. There is even an option provided that you can segregate the related party transactions. So see, this was the related party transaction. So if let's say any of the particular entity has n number of related parties, you could just mark the same as related party and all the transactions with that particular party would be available here. Similarly to the transaction in Forex. So whatever transactions have been taken place in multi-currency, that would be reflected here, be it be sale, purchase or anything. And you could drill down to the transaction directly from this report itself. So which is again a very good feature that Tally has provided. Now we would look into the same, that how we can select the samples, how we can do audit for the same, each of the same. Where to mark related party, yes, would show the same. So now see, basically the option that is provided for audit, that is data and analysis. When you go at this particular report, there would be a number of reports that would be provided. Verification of chart of accounts, verification of balances, analytical procedure, pending documents, periodic receipt payments, repeated transactions. All these reports are really useful from the perspective of audit. There is an option here that is analysis and verification reports. So all these reports that are there, that you can select it from here also. There is an option for master configuration. When you go to master configuration, there are three things: periodic receipt and payments. Now, what is the relevance of this particular thing? So let's say, for example, any of your rent payment. Now you could mention the same, that rent payment ledger is a periodic receipt or payment. So on monthly basis, you are supposed to pay the same. Then in that particular case, you can set the same to yes here, all your periodic receipt payment ledgers. What Tally would do is, in case there is any deviation or in case in any particular month, we have not entered any of the transaction, then it would highlight the same. So there would be an altogether a separate report for the same, this periodic receipts and payments. So whatever ledgers you would have marked, that would be displayed here. That for all these are periodic receipt and payment ledgers, you can just directly check the same. So now see, now this is in comparison to previous month, that in current year, nothing has been entered. And in this 21-22, there was a transaction of 2,75,000. So there is a variance. So in case there are any rent payments or like that, which are recurring in nature, for that you can define the same here and system would provide you with the report for the purpose of deviation. So in case there are any deviations, you could directly view the same from here and ask for the clarification with the management. Similarly, you can define the related parties. Let's say any of your party, that is be it be debtor or creditor, is a related party. You can just select the same to yes here And in that particular case, it would provide you with a separate report for the same. So once this has been configured by the audit head, I would say that whenever the person who is doing, be it be any article or any other person who is doing the audit for the same, he can just directly trace all the transactions with the related party directly from here. And this would even be useful from the perspective of tax audit reporting, that what were the transactions that took place with the related party, loans taken from the related parties. So it is a really much useful feature that has been provided in the system, but there is lack of awareness and we are not using the same. Similarly, there are various sampling methods which has been provided. So these are the voucher types that has been defined in the system. Now for all these voucher types, what all are the sampling methods that are there? So you could select any of the vouchers. If you want to have random sampling, you can have random sampling. If you want to select any other method, that do you want to have all the vouchers as sampling, then you can select all vouchers. If you want to provide amount range, that for transaction exceeding, let's say 10 lakh rupees only, you want to verify the same, then you can provide with the amount range here, what is the maximum amount and the minimum amount. Similarly, the Benford analysis. Benford analysis is one of the very well-known sampling method. This also has been inculcated in Tally. Similarly, if you want to view odd numbered vouchers or even number vouchers or transaction for a specific period, let's say if you got to know that in any company for one particular period, there was an uncertain event, be it be fire or there was any loss due to any robbery or anything, and you want to view the transaction specifically for that period, or any of the employee was engaged in any misstatement of financials or like that, and you want to view the same, then you can provide the transactions for that particular specific period. You could select the period here, or if you want to have any specific vouchers, you can just select the same. So see, when I select all vouchers as here, sampling method would be all voucher and report would be generated whereby you are supposed to view all the vouchers for the purpose of audit. There's an option, can we perform all these audit tasks in TallyPrime? So yes, see, TallyPrime and TallyPrime Edit Log both are one and the same. Only thing is that in Edit Log, user is getting an option to view the Edit Log trail. All other features are one and the same. So yes, you can very well perform all these tasks in TallyPrime also. So this was basically the selection screen for the purpose of sampling in Tally. Now coming to all of the reports that has been generated. First is the chart of accounts. Now see, chart of accounts, there might be certain ledgers. Now these are the list of the ledgers which have been squared off during the current year. If you want to verify specifically those ledgers, you can just check the same. So once you click on the same, so these are the accounts where transaction took place and closing balance is 0. So if you want to view the same, you can view the same directly from here. Similarly, these are not used ledgers. The ledgers which have not at all been used. So might be some ledgers would have been created mistakenly or for which there was no relevance or it was not configured properly. So in that particular case, transactions for which there are no transactions which have not been used in the financial year that have been reflected here. You could ideally delete all these transactions which are not used only in current year. So for this particular parties, these are the list of the transactions which have been used in current year only. So might be means this would be useful from your perspective if you want to check that how many new vendors or new customers were onboarded by the company and whether their proper KYC validation and all those things were done or not, whether their vendor registration was done or not, then in that particular case, this report would be really useful from the perspective of audit, that what all are the new parties with which the entity has transacted. Only balances, no transactions. Now, this is again a very good report. Let's say opening balance is being carried forward. So this is for, let's say for any of the particular debtor or creditor, only the opening balances have been carried forward. Then in that particular case, you could ask the management that what is the reason why the payment has not been received or why you have not paid to this particular creditor for at least for 12 months. whether the same needs to be written off, and if yes, then whether it does impact entity in any of the manner.
Kunal sir,
Yes.
yeah, Sanjay here from Tally.
Yes.
So actually, these reports which you are showing, through the data analysis, these are very intuitive in nature. And as and when any user go into this report, and it automatically throws that what information they are seeking and what the gist they can take out from here. So, for example, you have taken only 1 year over. You have taken just current year. Probably, if you can just add your previous year itself, so the report gets little enhanced. It improvises automatically on the dashboard.
Yes, correct. I ideally have currently the data for one particular financial year.
Kunal sir, your voice is little faint.
So I'm the data that I have taken for the purpose of demo, that is for one financial year itself. For this.
That's correct.
Yes.
So it's a very perfect example. In fact, because many of the CAs would be having clienteles where the data is maintained year by year. So for 2021 there is a different folder, 21-22 there is a different folder, 22-23 there might be a different folder. So this is a very perfect example which you have taken. So please carry on.
Yes. So see, basically now how this is useful ideally for you, that let's say for any particular data, let's say you are selecting the group of Sunday daters here. So now see all these daters currently in daters, I think there are no opening or closing, which are one and the same. So for these creditors, now these are the transactions which have been carried forward since previous year, and there has been no transaction in the current year. Then in that particular case, what you could do is you could just directly ask the management for the purpose of clarification that whether the same needs to be written off. If the same are to be written off, whether the GST ITC needs to be reversed from the same. So everything you can just ask directly on the same. You could even check the same, that these are even older than 180 days. So whether you are supposed to reverse the GST ITC, if not, what are the implications of the same? So these are something which the reports readily provides you. So you are not supposed to manually find out anything. These are the ready reports which are available from the system and which are really useful from the perspective of audit. So which, if used, your audit process would be really, I would say, much streamlined, much helpful from the documentation perspective also.
Kunal sir.
Yes.
Would be great if you just show the verification of balance. It's
yes.
like
yes.
It's like verification of your trial balance with respect to the previous year's closing balance, if it is maintained 2 years separately.
So see, there is an option provided here that is for compare company. So in case there are 2 separate financial years, let's say for 2021 and 21-22, there are 2 separate tally data and you want to compare the same. Then in that particular case, what you can do is, in the verification of balances, there is a tab provided here that is for compare company. Here you can select the path of that particular company. And once you select the path of that particular company, balances for both the financial years would be displayed here. And just for example, just a minute, let me just check whether this is there for 2021 also or not.
Kunal sir, is it okay if I just show it immediately because it's available on my screen?
Sure.
So I'll just share my screen quickly, if I'm allowed.
Just a minute.
Okay, so actually I'm taking a little old data. I just want to show you that how the trial balance verification basically is to be done. So for that we go into display and then analysis. I hope my screen is visible. And I go into verification of balance. Okay. So here it's showing me certain information, and then I click on compare company and I load my previous year data. So I'm just loading it and I'll just refresh. See, wherever there is a challenge, it throws the information in the red. So it saves a lot of time. If you just read this report, it says opening balance of 12/13 versus the closing balance of 11/12. So wherever there is a challenge, there is a difference. Okay, it's showing that information in the red. You can just export this and you can do the further verification. So this will be a very helpful tool if your client is there who is maintaining a different folder for every year. So this will save a lot of your time. This you might be doing it manually, but if you do this from the system, so it can save a lot of your time. So this I just wanted to iterate here. So yes, sir. Kunal sir, now over to you. Can please take over.
So see, this basically is useful. One thing is that from the perspective of verification of opening balances, this feature is really useful. And apart from that, when you are, let's say for your financials, if you want to compare the two particular financial years. So in that particular case also, when you want to compare two financial years, the balances for each of the same. Basically, that would be useful from the perspective of items under the head of P&L, that you want to compare that what were your expenses in the current year and the previous year, and you want to compare each of the same, that what is the reason for increase in any of the expense, let's say commission expense or anything, then whether it is due to the increase in sales or it is any other reason, then system would by default provide you with the deviation for the same, and that particular deviation once provided, then you could directly ask the same to the management. So these are basically the list of the transactions. So if see purchase, currently here it is having the credit balance. So any of the ledgers which are having the negative balance, that also would be highlighted here. And there is one more feature that is for balance variance. That is available here. So for all the transactions, when you are looking at the comparative for two financial year, currently we don't have a complete data for the same, but it would provide you with the variance in each of the ledger, that what was the balance in previous year, what is the balance in current year. So the deviation, if there is any huge deviation, then in that particular case, justification for the same could be asked to the management. Now these are readily available for audit perspectives. Similarly, there is analytical reports. So let's say you want to compare the revenue and profitability for two particular financial year. Let's say in one particular year, your revenue was 100 CR. Next year, it boosted to 500 CR. So similarly, what is the impact on profitability or any of the particular expenses? Then you could select those groups specifically. Let's say if you want to have specific to sales account and comparison with, let's say, commission expense. Then in that particular case, you can select the same year, or if you want to compare the same with the direct expense. And this is the period for the comparison. So it would display here that, see, this is these are your direct incomes. And what is the deviation in each of the financial year? So in 2021, it is 1.50 CR, and in financial year 21-22, it is just it is 1.97 CR. So the deviation in the same, that is 47.82 lakhs, and what it is in terms of percentage. So based on your requirement, you could select the group of your requirement. You could compare each of the same and directly have the variance report for the same. And there is an option if you want to add some additional groups or anything, then you could directly add the same through here. So that is basically regarding the analytical procedures. Pending documents. Now, let's say there is a trail that for any of the purchase order, how many purchase bills are pending, or how many for the ideally the trail goes from purchase order to GRN to purchase invoice. So let's say for how many means how many orders have been placed, but goods have not been received. So what is the value for the same? Similarly, what in case goods have been received, but invoice has not been booked? So this report basically shows the same, that there are total 57 orders that are outstanding. And similarly, there are 825 sales orders that are outstanding, and the amounts are this much. Similarly, here they are not using GRN. So in case of sales order, how many goods have been delivered, but invoices has not been made? So these are basically the list of the delivery notes that has been prepared. So here, these are the list where delivery note has been made, but invoices are not been prepared. And these are the pending receivable and payable. That's the outstanding report that we looked upon previously. The periodic receipts and payment, we already discussed that any of the ledgers which are periodic in nature, like rent, or if there is any recurring income, you could mark the same to periodic, and you could just trace the same, whether the receipts or the expenses have been booked or not, or in case there are deviations. Then there are repeated transactions. So this is something with respect to, let's say, for any particular ledger, the transaction happens with the same amount only. Now, this is, I would say, very frequent and normal for the ledgers like rent, expense, and anything. However, when you are selling goods to any party, then in that case, it is possible that there would be some or the other sort of deviation. However, in that ledgers also, if it comes with a similar amount and you want to specifically view the same, then those reports would be available directly from here. So let's say, just for example, if we take any, so these are the EPC transaction amounts. So for the amount of 1 crore, there are total 105 transactions bearing amount of 1 crore. So whether that is actual for bank amount, for bank accounts, it is possible. For transportation expense, now if we see, there are 72 transactions with the same amount. So whether this expense is actually genuine or not. So all these things you could trace directly from the system. And if anything is found which is suspicious in nature, then the clarification for the same could be asked to the management. Similarly, there is relative size factor. So this is basically that what is the difference between the highest value and the lowest value. So in normal scenario, the relative size factor that should be minimal. So in case if there is too large, then we can ask for the justification for that particular ledgers to the management. It's taking a bit time to open the report.
Kunal sir, can we take a few questions? I see a lot of hands raised here.
Sure.
Because we have only 10 minutes,
Yes,
13
yes, sure,
minutes
sure,
now.
sure.
So, can we unmute somebody from here, from the list of the people who have raised hand? I'm not able to unmute them.
Can the host do the same?
Yes. Shweta ma'am, are you there? Bhavna? Can you hear me? Can you allow us, to take a few questions so if you can allow us to unmute them, because we are not able to unmute.
Okay, till the time we are unmuting the same. So these are the basically reports. What are the interbank transactions? That are the contra entries, cash withdrawals, then fixed asset analysis, transaction on holidays. So in case there are any transactions on holidays like Sunday, or if there was any weekly off or anything, then that you could trace the same directly from here. You could define the holidays in Tally itself. So once that holidays are defined, then in that, see, there is a holiday configuration here. You could define that which days are holidays, and if there are any additional dates on which there are holidays, you could define the same in the system. It would be available directly from the system. Highest value, lowest value transaction, pending advances, and stale checks, if any. There is a feature for check management in Tally. So in case if there are stale checks or anything, then that would be reflected by the system itself. So if you have issued any check which is not cleared well within 90 days, and you are supposed to reconcile the same, that report would be available from the system directly. And this is voucher and verification, that these are for the purpose of sample that we selected. Now let's say if you want to select any of the transaction. So this, whether you want to verify the same, if it is for internal observation, it is for external observation, you could mark the same for internal, let's say observation, clarification needed. Now say it is for internal observation. This particular transaction we have kept for hold, pending for document. This is for internal observation clarified. So previously it was under internal observation, and now it has been clarified, and this is under external clarification. So when we mark this transaction to internal observation, when would see here, now see, previously it was 0, now it is showing that pending for internal observation, pending 1. When we go to transaction, it is showing here. Once we have discussed the same, we can mention the reason for the same internal observation clarified. So this is the manner in which you can do the audit for all of the transactions. Reports would be available from the system. There's a question from Mr. Piyush. Can we set unique document number commonly for all the vouchers like in SAP, and can we attach relevant docs like invoice in Tally and relevant vouchers for further reference? So see, first thing, setting of unique document number, yes, that is very well possible. You could mention the same in the alias. So for each of the ledgers, you could set the unique unique reference number and attachment of documents. So Tally by default currently don't have that particular feature. However, there are various solutions provided by various partners for the same. So even that feature is available. However, that is possible through add-ons or customization. But document reference number, yes, currently you can mention the same, like you are mentioning in SAP or any other ERP. You could mention the same in alias. So see, this was basically that out of total vouchers, you selected 64 samples, and these were the ones which were pending for internal clarification, observation. These were pending, these were clarified further. These were pending for external clarification. So you would have an entire report from here. Your audit head would be able to have an idea that what all things you have reviewed the same and what are your observations directly from Tally itself. So this is one of the really useful feature from the perspective of audit. And I'm sure that I would say that 95% of CAs are not using the same. If used, it is really a great feature. So if you can please, I would say, unmute the participants for asking the question. Bhavna ma'am or anyone, if you can please do the new tool.
Santosh.
The host or the co-host would be able to do.
You'll have to give us the right as co-host. You'll have to mark as right click on our names and give us co-host, and then we will be able to unmute them.
Actually, I'm unable to give it, so I'm just
The only host can give that, right?
yeah, exactly. So
By the time, if you do have question, you can please mention in the chat box.
I would request everyone to, if they have any questions, they can just at least keep posting in the chat box.
Chat.
Chat box is disabled.
चैट बॉक्स ऑन कर दिया है, क्वेश्चन में बोलिए देने के लिए।
हुआ अभी enable?
If you can just unmute the participants, ma'am.
मिश्रा जी, हम पार्टिसिपेंट्स को अनम्यूट कर सकते हैं? उनको रेज हैंड करने को बोलेंगे तो शायद उसमें दिखेगा क्या?
Yes, yes.
Yes.
But somebody from us will have to.
मैंने चैट बॉक्स ऑन करके रख दिया मैम, चैट पे आ रहा है क्वेश्चन, देखिए ना।
नहीं, वो क्या बोल रहे हैं, उनको बात करनी है, पार्टिसिपेंट्स को अगर बात करनी है तो अपने को उनको एक्सेस देना पड़ेगा ना।
मैम उनको फिर मुझे यहाँ पे पहले अटेंडेंस में एंट्री करना पड़ेगा, फिर उनको बात कराना पड़ेगा।
नहीं
या
नहीं
फिर
नहीं
मुझे हाथ
आप-
उठाने के लिए हैंड्स को, तो मैं उस बाद में उनको अलाउड करूंगा, फिर वो कर देंगे मैम।
हाँ, so अभी 12 लोगों ने हाथ उठाया हुआ है, आप उसको
हाँ तो
राइट
कर
क्लिक
उनको
करके बस
फिर
अनम्यूट कर
कर
दीजिए।
रहा हूँ सर।
So Ganesh ji, Benita Desai ma'am, Pawan Kumar, Narendra Unadkat, Archana, you have been unmuted. If you have any queries, you can just unmute yourself. You can simply ask us.
मैडम मैंने माइक ऑन कर दिया उनका सबका।
Okay. So we are just announcing again, there are people who have raised hand and we have unmuted, we have given them the permission to unmute themselves. Samira Khanji, you have any query?
people who have raised hands can now ask questions.
Yes, they can directly talk to us.
Yes.
Yes, I can see that Samira Khan का enabled है.
Yeah. I think she is talking, but we are not probably able to hear.
Samira, can you hear us? If you can just put up into the chat box so we'll be able to know whether you can hear us or not.
Anybody else who has raised hand want to ask anything? CA Viral Patel or Narendra Unadkat, Archana Amane, Brahmakaran Vyas, Dharmen Thakkar, Nishant Shamkant, Trupti, Suresh Kumar Nair.
Samira has replied that she can hear us. So I think if the participants are comfortable, we can interact through the chats also, na?
Yes, but I don't see any questions here.
Okay. Did you check in the question answer?
There also there are no questions.
We have already answered all the questions, during live
Okay.
session.
I think members are not required to post their membership number.
I was about to ask whether is it any protocol
No,
after the
no.
WIRC sessions that you need to mention your
Nothing is.
membership numbers.
No, they must be feeling
So,
like
ma'am,
that.
हेलो मैडम,
posted
आपको माइक ऑन किया, कोई कुछ
the-
बोल नहीं रहे हैं।
Okay.
चैट पे क्वेश्चन डाल रहे हैं मुझे भी, कोई मेंबरशिप नंबर।
We conclude that you have no questions in the audience.
I think because now the members are posting their membership number only.
Exactly, yeah.
And nothing is there. So I think we can conclude if we all are okay.
Absolutely.
Sure then, okay. So I would just give my vote of thanks. And first of all, I am immensely thankful on behalf of WIRC to Mr. Kunal Soni for presenting this extremely insightful presentation on e-invoicing and auditing through TallyPrime. See, we all know that Tally is the most common software which is being used by the people nowadays, and e-invoicing is the has so many complications in itself. So being into GST, even I have so many complications with e-invoicing. So it's really helpful for the people who are not on various other professional platforms. It really helps sessions connect them very well with the Tally and the e-invoicing both together. I'm really thankful to the Tally Solutions and Mr. Kunal Soni and your team for giving this entire session in so much of detail with so much of live examples and the visuals as well. So thank you so much. And I'm hoping everyone, all of you must have liked the session really well. And if in case any queries you have, you can definitely mail it to us, and or you can we'll get the this presentation also is usually uploaded on the WIRC website, so you can get it from there. In case you have any queries, you can just mail to the speakers. So that's all from our end right now, and hope you enjoyed the session, all of you. And thank you so much, Kunal. Thank you so much, Komal and Sanjay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, team WIRC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Shweta, and thank you, Arpit sir.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And I think we can sign off for the day.
Thank you.
Yeah.